Reinhold Niebuhr, a guy in the 30s, talking about life as a train wreck. And you're all familiar with train wrecks in your own life where you go off the tracks. This is what he said about faith, that your faith. And if it's not your faith, this is your goal. Faith, in essence, is the ability and the courage to reflect on the tragic dimensions of existence without being tempted to regard it as meaninglessness. In other words, regardless of what happens to you in your life, your faith will give you the courage to not find your life and being without meaning. When life has gone bad, and it does for all of us at different points, the first thing is to feel the loss and to let it register. We've all grown up in a modern America in which we don't have time to spend mourning for too very long in public, and we're not allowed to express the tragic nature of the events that have happened to us and all of that. Because, what everybody says, what's the use of complaining? Nobody wants to hear it. It's just a cliche, but it's true enough that, that we take it to heart. And one of the very first things that's important for us when our lives have gone off track is to assess what has been lost and where we are today. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but today. And again, that's one of the weaknesses in our culture, is that we don't think so much about today and take it as a gift in and of itself. We're always thinking about the past, we're thinking about the future, and we miss a lot of the day as it occurs. So we need to be able to share with people who won't say it's going to be better, our tragedies, but will be able to just listen, because we need to examine the wounds to actually evaluate what the losses really are. When you think about it for a minute, how many times have you said and wished you had just shut up and not said it? Oh, it'll get better. I'm sorry it happened, but you're tough. You'll work through it. And you know at the time you said it that it was pablum and it was useless. And you were the one who was uncomfortable. And you wanted to, like the road runner, go. And that was the way to do it. There's always deeper losses. And this is really important. This is what Jesus is talking about, by the way, when he said he came to bring a sword, not peace. You need to get that, because if you're doing it literally, you really miss the point. What he's saying is that because of the faith that he has given to us, with both the courage and the wisdom to explore the tragic dimensions of our lives, we need to cut people off from us who are going to feed us pablum and are not going to treat us as fully human adults who are capable of handling the tragic parts of our lives. And if that includes your mom and dad who treat you like a baby still, that's what that means. If it's the people who are the yes people who will say, oh, it'll be okay, and you know they're lying because they just want to do that hit and run deal because it's too much work. That's what he's talking about. You cut those people in tough times loose. Not permanently, but they're not people you can count on. The ones you can count on are the ones that you can always examine the deeper losses and dimensions of the tragedies. Call them the secondary losses, if you will, the ones that are hidden away. The ones where you have crafted your world, and it's really been working. And all of a sudden something happens, and it's a train wreck, and you're no longer crafting your world, it has crumbled. Now what are you going to do? Your sense of personal worth may have gone out the window. Your identity as a person is different because of the tragedy or disastrous circumstance in which you have found yourselves. And you need to have reliable and sturdy people to explore those secondary losses. The certainty, and I suppose we've all had these moments in our lives where you simply don't feel very lovable because you know you've been a complete you-know-what, and you just want to become part of the wall. Yeah, those moments. You've had times where you have been deprived of the security and the control and the independence that you have built up for yourself over the years. Many young people are robbed of innocence when they've gone through life and get off into certain circumstances of their lives, and they're robbed of the innocence, and the parents' hearts are bleeding. But these are the kinds of secondary losses, the hidden ones, that need to be explored. Now, you're all familiar with the Bible word witness, and you're used to thinking about a witness as somebody like one of the apostles who's going to go witness on behalf of Jesus Christ. Well, the Bible actually uses the word witness for someone who has both the grit and the guts and the courage to witness another person's tragedy and to be there for them. Not to offer advice, but to just witness the person's pain and turmoil. And I couldn't even tell you how important that is, and all of you who have had that happen in your life have been God-awful thankful for the people who have been able to witness to your pain. And aloneness is one of the huge secondary issues that happens in tragic times. You feel nobody wants to be bothered with you. They don't really want to take the time, you feel sort of stupid talking about it. And you should just get over it and get on with your life. Move on, we say, move on. But there's no moving on, except you do move on, but you move on alone. And it is people who are witnesses, and that's part of what Jesus was saying about picking up your cross and following him. You're there with another person helping to bear their cross simply by being listeners so that they can tell their story of the tragedy and explore the dimensions and depths of what it really is. That's what most people don't do. And that's why a lot of healing does not occur, because the full dimensions are not explored. I mean, how many people, after all, do you trust? I have a psychiatrist friend who tells me all the time, when something bad happens, loss of a loved one, divorce, getting T-boned and getting hurt in a car crash, losing your job, whatever tragic has happened, you need emotionally and soul work to tell that story 6 times every day to 6 different people. And do it for some weeks until you can wind down, which you will as you gain a perspective on what has happened. Now, how many of us have that many people that we could tell our stories to? I would think that we would all be a little hard-pressed to even count 6 people that we would tell that to, which means that the tragedy will just hang on. And it will diminish our humanity, diminish our soul. So we need witnesses. And in the Bible, witnesses are people who will just be there to hear you explore those dimensions of loss, so that you don't have to suffer silently and alone, and cut yourself off from everybody, including yourself. So to witness the suffering of another, to witness, is to acknowledge the truth of it, and to reach also into the isolation that will ease the loneliness. I know, don't ask me why, I hate the word fine. If you ever say I'm fine to me, you know that I will know you're lying. Okay, let me put it that baldly. Okay, I was just reading an article, and they, some psychologist or theologian came up with an acronym for fine, which I thought was pretty good. To be fine, F means freaked out. I means insecure. N stands for neurotic. And E stands for emotional. I thought, well, that's a pretty good description of our lives when things go bad. Now, how do you enter into another person's loss? One of the things that happens to all of us, we begin to question our own humanity and value and worth, and how well we're going to be able to pick up the pieces of our lives and move along. Well, the one thing that is true in what Jesus was saying again, keep in mind, I come to bring the sword to separate people out from you. The people who will yes you to death, pat you on the head, say it'll be all right, and walk away. Those are the people that he will cut off from you temporarily, and that your faith needs to cut off, because they will not help you. They will be of little help to you. The recognition that the sufferer still has dignity is really important. I was reading an article about a doctor, a surgeon, who had inoperable brain tumor, and he first noticed it because he'd have short periods of blindness, and it got worse. But he had two buddies that he's been friends with for years and years and years, and they were tough on him. They took him out fishing one day, and he had a temporary shot of blindness, and he walked into the lake and fell in. Yeah, and they didn't stop him. They just went in and got him and pulled him up and said, "Why don't you watch where you're going?" Another time they took him skeet shooting because he loved to do skeet shooting. Well, he missed every skeet because he was blind. And they just said, "Man, you're a lousy shot." And then at another point, they emailed him and said, "We need your truck. Can you drive? If not, we'll come over and get it, and we'll take you along." And so that's what they did. And I was thinking, man, that is harsh. That is really harsh. But the point of the article was this. What happens in tragedy? You feel diminished as a human being. You feel slightly embarrassed that you can't handle your own stuff. You start to go into aloneness, eventually isolation, eventually become part of the law. And you live a very lonely and very conflicted life because you don't live in the moment to explore the dimensions. What his buddies did, in their own fashion, was to acknowledge his illness and its depth, and yet at the same time they treated him like a whole man, not a part man, but a whole man. And they didn't coddle him, because he is a fully human being who will function as he is capable of doing. And they expected him to function as an adult, even with his problems. And they gave their friend a job to do. We need the truck. We either come and get it or you drive it over. That's a witness. And that is a good witness, both of them, to a person who's had a personal train wreck in his life. And they've addressed all of the secondary issues. Now, a lot of times when we receive the bad news or something bad happens to us, fear can overwhelm us. And you'll know you're in a fear state because of this. Now, listen up. You know you're going to be in a fearful time when you have one foot in the past, thinking about, oh my God, if I had done things differently, this would never have happened, or I must have done something wrong, or it's in my genetic family code, or something like that. And then you have another foot in the future, where I got to do this, I need to do this, I'm going to figure this out, I'm going to live this way. As a psychiatrist friend, you see how I'm standing? Yes, I'm going to say it. If you have one foot in the past and one foot in the future, you poop in the present. You're welcome, mothers and fathers. But my spiritual mentor of many years was not wrong. Because what is it that in the tragedy of our lives matters? It is the ability to see with some clarity the immediacy of the moments and days in which we live. Because we mask our pain by living in the past, or we mask it by living in the future. So we do not have to deal and live in the present. And it is precisely there where Jesus in the gospel reading today is going with being a disciple and carrying your cross and cutting people off. The best thing for all of us is to live in the immediacy of the moment, because it is there where we're able to focus on both the people and the healing conditions that God will surround us with. And that's His promise, that we will be surrounded with His graciousness. And if we're in past or future, we miss all of the graciousness of the present day. So the best thing in the train wreck is to stay in the moment, to stay in the day, and to live there. Not live in the past, not live in the future, but live in the present day. I have a friend of mine who recently lost his job, simply because, we were consolidating departments, so that where they had 20 people in one department and 30 people in another department,